Bola, 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 bola.
Waste management and disposal is considered one of our biggest problems in Nigeria, while policies and regulations created by successive governments and private organizations have been implemented to address poor waste management. The issue remains a recurring epidemic.
So waste management has to do with the activities related to the management of waste from its inception to disposal. When we say the inception is just a collection. So it goes through a long process of collection, transportation, if you're recycling, then recycling, reprocessing, upcycling, downcycling, whatever you call it. Then at the last source, if it's definitely not useful anymore, then disposal through incineration or through any other chemical process that this endeavors.
Well, waste management is the process from inception where an item becomes a waste. Through the different activities it goes to the final stage it reaches in terms of storage or the composition.
So when we talk about waste management, we're talking about like all of the events or activities surrounding the handling of waste. So from the very process of collection towards transportation, and we then talk about disposal. And like I said, there are two types of waste, solid and liquid waste. So the handling, disposal, and collection of these materials is what is known as waste management.
It is common across all 36 states in Nigeria to see heaps of festering waste dumps in the nooks and crannies of major cities, not to talk of the rural areas. Markets, waterways, highways, streets, and undeveloped plots of land have been turned to waste dumps. The unhygienic behavior has been attributed to the rise in quantity of solid waste generated yearly as a result of population increase.
Nigeria has the largest population in Africa. So when you look at about 170 million of people that are not really looking after their environment, then it becomes an issue for the continent. Based on UN statistics, it said that out of the 32 million tons of waste that is generated in Nigeria, only 20 to 30% is actually collected. So where does the rest go? It goes to the drainage system, it goes to the water fields, it goes to the rivers, it goes to the ocean, it goes to under your house, it goes to all your surroundings. So what happens with that? What are you gonna drink? You are contaminating your water. What are you gonna drink tomorrow? What capacity should that water treatment plant should have to take care of what you're destroying?
It's very critical. I mean, you don't even need a soothsayer to tell you, because you look around and you see like packets of open dump sites, like people just bring their rubbish and drop it out on the street corners. The volume, the sheer amount of waste that is generated in Nigeria. One individual, for example, today, let's say you've probably generated maybe a kilo less than that. So every day we generate, this is one thing we do every day on a regular basis, we generate waste. And we have a huge population in Nigeria. So with a population of over 170 million people in Nigeria, for example, some records put it at 200 million. We don't know that for a fact, but with that kind of record and with everybody generating that amount of waste, we're looking at between 35 to 45 tons of waste being generated annually. That is a whole lot of waste. That is more than, I don't know how many African countries put together that Nigeria alone generates. So imagine all of that waste just sitting around.
I don't think the issue of waste management in Nigeria is as a result of population, though it might be a contributing factor. But mainly, I think it has to do with planning and also enlightenment of the public. People casually throw waste and think it's nothing. So people need to be enlightened so that they are more aware of how the little things you throw away can come back and bite you someday and have an effect to economic activities or even your health. So I think key thing to look at here is planning on how you can properly dispose waste and also how to enlighten the public
There are other factors responsible for poor waste disposal management in Nigeria. These include lack of adequate funding, lack of the needed political will, lack of comprehensive legal framework, and enforcement of the existing regulations, wrong attitude of the public towards waste disposal, low academic research, and so on.
The major factor militating against effective waste management is ignorance, lack of knowledge about responsibilities or obligations of all those involved in the waste management cycle.
Okay, so it starts first of all with education. Quite a number of people are not aware, and even if they're aware, they don't care. You know, there's this thing that people often at times say, we've done cleanups, and while we're cleaning up, people are littering, and we're telling them, don't you see what we're doing? I say, well, somebody's paid to do it. Somebody's going to come and clean it. Why should we take the jobs away from the persons? And I keep telling them, I said, the people that are cleaning up will always have a job to do. If they're not picking up after your plastic, they're actually picking up the leaves or other debris on the street. So they have a job to do. And then the facilities or the infrastructure for waste disposal. Let's say, okay, I know that waste disposal is wrong, or sorry, littering is wrong, for example. Where do I dispose my waste? There are no bins provided, you know. So we tell people to take it in their pockets or handbags and look for a proper recycling bin or whatever and put it in. But they're not really existent in this part of the country, of the world, you know. It's difficult. Even if you see the bins, they're far, or, you know, people don't even want to do that. Take their rubbish all the way home and empty it in their trash, you know, or look for a dustbin around.
For every wrong disposal of waste, either solid, liquid, or gaseous, we risk air and water pollution, contamination of the soil wherein our food and vegetables come from, as well as sicknesses caused by bacterial diseases as a result of constant accumulation of harmful substances, which becomes a breeding ground for insects. Dr. Emeka Anoje, a public health consultant, expatiates on the implications of poor waste management to the human body.
One of the major waste products, which also can be very, very hazardous, are biological wastes, meaning waste from the human body, either feces, urine, blood, or blood products. And we do know that in Nigeria, about 41 million of the population still practice open defecation, meaning that Nigeria has, in a sense, the highest number of persons living in one country who practice open defecation. So in terms of the health effects, I'll look at it along those lines. For the waste that contaminates the air, meaning that it affects the air that people breathe, and the primary organ that gets affected is the lungs. So there are a lot of respiratory diseases that are caused by poor waste management, which results in affecting the air that people breathe. Taking it a step further to what people ingest, either what they drink or what they eat, there are a lot of waterborne and foodborne diseases, that are largely traceable to poor waste management. A lot of diarrheal diseases, dysentery, cholera. Nigeria has been very, very endemic. Cholera in Nigeria has been very, very endemic. There's hardly a year that goes by without an incident of an outbreak of cholera and other diarrheal diseases. And this is largely traceable to poor waste management.
TOS TV network went to the streets to find out just how much Nigerians know about the importance of waste management and its implications on our lives and environment.
I live in a community where a particular place has been reserved so that people can easily take their waste there and dispose. At the end of the day, the government of Nasarawa State there will bring, vehicles who are into that very business. Then they'll come and evacuate it and take it elsewhere.
There's a waste company that comes over to take it, so I separate them and sort them out, so they just pick what they need to pick.
I don't used to throw away my dustbin anywhere. I used to packet it. When I ask them to, I'll pay, they come and pick it. Because when I throw it anywhere, it will disturb environment.
I don't just dispose it anyhow. I try as much as I can to dispose it in a way that it will not be harmful to another person?
It's very simple. The things you use, your waste, you have to dispose them properly. You don't just chew things, or let's just start with stop eating in the public.
If had been that in Abuja we have environmental, these come and sweep. But our area there we don't have those kind of things. You understand? So it's our own concern that we keep the environment neat. But most of people, they didn't care about that.
I think the government cannot do it in isolation. Government alone cannot do that. I think there is a need for orientation. I mean, the people need to know, because if you do not know the danger posed by waste, I mean poor management of waste, then definitely you won't see the need to do something that can actually help in the management of waste.
In terms of management, if the government doesn't manage it properly, it will definitely affect not just the citizen, it will affect the country. How? When you enter a country where it's dirty, when you go outside, maybe you want to go and represent your country outside, in one way or the other, they might be referring you as a dirty person. You might not be dirty, but because they have seen your country as a dirty country.
The dangers, some of the dangers for poor waste management, there are lots. Sicknesses, cholera for instance. Some of the wastes we dispose, they end up in the gutters, end up in the sewage, and eventually gets back to the people, and then this is where people fetch from to drink. So
an environment that is littered with waste, it can cause germs and all of that. You know, we live in a environment that, you see, mosquito is all over, and these are insects, I mean, that actually cause malaria that we face every day and then.
It is clear that more sensitization needs to be carried out amongst Nigerians on the importance of effective waste disposal. While the media plays a key role in educating the general populace, the government must do more in enforcing its waste disposal policies and integrating local waste carriers in our rural areas such as bowlers and scavengers.
I have been in this very bowler stuff for years now. I have not seen anything. There are some holes that will go and dump them, while some other people come there to pick things like irons to go and use them for their own use, you know. But this is how we do it. That we just compact them, dump them anywhere we feel like dumping them, or anywhere we see bushes around, we dump them. So the government have not tried, as in they have not done what we want, as in at least they should have, like every street, baskets around, so that as you finish drinking your pure water, you just dump it there, instead of throwing it around. And our society these days, we need good health. Hungry is everywhere, so hungry, lack of good health, somebody will die, premature death.
I think the FCT administration, understands the role that the, babambolas or scavengers play. And we know that their activities are actually key to waste management, all over the world. But then their operations need to be streamlined so that it will be in tandem with what we intend to do. So that is why recently the FCT administration banned their activities from the city center. So it's not taking jobs out of their hand, but it's even providing them with a central pool where they can get all resources that they require, and that is the dump sites. So what the FCT administration has come up with is to restrict their operations to the dump sites, and they have all, there's no other place they can have a pool of resources as the dump sites. So whatever they need is actually taken to the dump sites.
In an interview on the Osasu show in 2017, the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, made reference to the official cleanup of Ogoni land by President Muhammadu Buhari on June 2, 2016. However, over a year later, and with the continuous oil spillage witnessed in the communities by IOCs, nothing had been done.
1 year after the flag off, not a single drop of oil has been cleaned from Ogoni land.
A lot has been done. There are preparations, there will be procedure for procurement. There will be, logistics to be handled. And I think the last time I had is that I think they've gotten to the level of procurement, because what government said was that as soon as we put in place the governing bodies for the two organizations, then the donors, I think largely Shell, will now be able to, bring the donation, and also the federal government will bring its own. But to say that, yes, one drop of oil might not have been cleaned, but it does not mean that.
But are you aware that people are dying from breathing in that toxic air?
Are you also aware that before 2016, the report of that UNEP was sitting down unattended to, and we took the...
Nigerians are not debating the fact that the past administration failed woefully.
I'm not saying
that is a given fact. We've seen that. But now this administration is in charge.
See, for God's sake, Osasu, some things are not just like, Nescafe that you put in water and you drink. There are procedures even for procurement. There are procedures even for awarding contract.
All over the world, multiple waste disposal methods are being implemented. The art of recycling is one of them.
Recycling is a process where you take, for example, like waste or items, and you change them into like reusable. You give them another form, you give them a second life, you reuse them, or you give them a form of like, you take them and transform them into something that is usable again. So that's the process of recycling. So you can recycle, there's metal recycling, plastic recycling, there's all forms of recycling. So just taking those used materials and literally transforming them back into something else, or back into the same material they originally were.
So recycling is pretty much taking an item and passing it through a process that will transform it into another item, or will give it another use. So with what I mentioned before, there are two terminologies that I said. I said downcycling and upcycling. So it's pretty much, it's coming up from the recycling, which is the heart. So I've taken this item, and then if I want to upcycle, that means I'm gonna transform it into something else of the same value or higher value. However, when I want to downcycle, then I take the same item and transform it into something of a lesser value. So pretty much recycling has to do with giving an item a second life.
The recycling culture in Nigeria is actually very poor, because not a lot of people recycle, not a lot of people care about recycling. For a lot of people, recycling is it's just this word that people play around with, because if people are actually conscious about recycling at their various homes, they will be sorting their waste. Means all the waste will not be in one bin, for example, your food waste with your plastics and your cans. A lot of people are not aware, so they don't do that. So they don't really think about it, in terms of why should I recycle, or what's the need for recycling, or even recycling as a whole. It's like automatic. But gradually, we're seeing people who are actually paying attention to the fact that there's something called climate change, and there's something called like recycling and things that actually hurt the environment.
Recycling is a solution, it's not the new wave, it's not what we are trying to make noise about, it's not what is trending. Recycling is a solution to what? A solution to our planet needs.
There is a need to create more sensitization for the public and also provide possible solutions to help curb our waste management problems.
We've just got one planet Earth, and we need to protect the environment in the interest of our health, in the interest of our safety. So now more than ever before, I think people should take the issue of waste management very, very seriously, and that effort should be complemented by a very deliberate and intentional effort on the part of government at all levels to invest heavily in proper waste management processes and procedures.
I think it's more like private organizations and civil societies that are doing more in the environmental space, but they also need to work with government to be able to achieve some of these set aims and objectives. For example, and managing the waste in the city. The government alone cannot do it. I'm telling you, they're really overwhelmed. You don't need to, I mean, if they were not, we don't have to see rubbish on our street corners or in gutters, or we don't have to worry about flooding and all the things. They're really overwhelmed. The infrastructure and all the things they need is not really here in Nigeria in place. So they are, in a way, like their hands are tied in a way. So you see private sector coming in, you know, with their recycling facilities. You see like civil societies doing a lot of advocacy and awareness, and, you know, just pointing people to the fact that recycling is key and waste is destructive to the environment.
Nigeria and Africans in general are creative people, you know, and I think once they're enlightened on the effect of waste and how it can come back to them in a bad way, and also how they can make good use of it, you know, in terms of making something meaningful out of it, be it for monetary purpose. I'm sure people will be very creative, you know, and find a lot of work around waste management, and also eventually contribute in a very good way to the society and the world in general.
To me, education is the solution. In the schools, I believe we need to be educated on environmental issues, how you at your own level can avoid and change certain behaviors that are causing damage to the environment. There is a song my daughter sings for my husband always, and it's very funny to me. I'm trying to raise them in a way that indirectly, without them knowing, they are naturally conscious, you know. So whenever he opens the tap to its max, so she always sings for him, "Daddy, daddy," and then he answers, "Yes, Maya." Then she will say, "Wasting water," and he will answer, "No, Maya." Then she's like, "Telling lies," and he's, "No, Maya." Then he says, she now tells him, "Close the tap," and then he laughs, "Ha ha ha." So that's like a child song. "Johnny, Johnny, yes, Papa, eating sugar, no, Papa. Telling lies, no, Papa. Open your mouth, ha ha ha." So she now transformed it into wasting water, and to me it's so funny, but it makes sense. You know, we need to educate these kids.
We should try from the point of waste generation to separate our wastes into organic and inorganic wastes, so that when these waste cleaners, you know, come to pick the waste, it will be easier for them instead of mixing them up. It is actually every individual's responsibility to keep his environment clean and also ensure that his waste is properly containerized, either into recyclables or non-recyclables. And I think in this aspect, the federal government alone cannot do everything. So I will call on even area councils, state governments to see waste management as a serious business in which everybody must be involved.